It was wrong. It was illegal. It should never have happened.
They were literally shaken down by their own government. They had the onus of proof reversed. They were treated as guilty until proven innocent.
The Robodebt scheme was a gross betrayal and a human tragedy.
A tragedy that could see charges laid against a group including former ministers, public servants, even ex-prime ministers. Up to 20 architects of the Robodebt scheme recommended for civil and criminal prosecutions after the Royal Commission today found dishonesty and collusion was at the heart of it.
As the Commissioner has made clear, there is a sealed section of the report with referrals for criminal prosecution.
The identity of those 20 for now remains a mystery, so as not to prejudice any future cases. But some big names have been slammed in the damning report. Commissioner Holmes finding former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who launched the scheme as Social Services Minister back in 2015, gave evidence to the Commission that was untrue.
The income averaging as contemplated in the executive minute was an established practice.
And allowed Cabinet to be misled over the legality of Robodebt.
Do you think it's appropriate that Scott Morrison continue to sit in Parliament?
Well, that's a matter for him.
Former Human Services Minister Alan Tudge accused of an abuse of power for his reprehensible leaking of private information of welfare recipients.
A particularly mean-spirited aspect of the government's defence was the employment of the media, which included singling out recipients who complained.
Former Minister for Government Services Stuart Robert criticised for knowingly making false statements in his defence of the scheme, while the Commissioner found former Social Services Minister Christian Porter could not rationally have thought the scheme was legal. Robert welcoming the report, the others rejecting the findings against them.
The previous government and senior public servants gaslighted the nation and its citizens for 4.5 years.
Robodebt, the automated debt recovery system which saw over 400,000 welfare recipients illegally pursued over false debts, described in the report as a massive failure of public administration caused by venality, incompetence and cowardice.
Jared was my only child. You know, I lost my purpose in life. Jared was my purpose. He was my joy. He was everything. And that's gone now.
For Kath Madgwick, who lost her son to the scheme, today's findings are cold comfort.
You know, this can be the pushing point for people to take their lives. It's important that we listen and we learn.
Victims told there'll be no more compensation. The Commissioner insisting the money would be better spent lifting the current welfare rates. Among her other 57 recommendations, more face-to-face customer service, reducing stigma for welfare recipients, and communicating in clear, plain language. The PM promising to learn from the tragedy.
My government will be committed to not just putting this report on a shelf, but making sure that it can never happen again.
Joining us now is one of the reporters who helped break this story, Rick Morton from the Saturday paper. Rick, you have followed this from the beginning. Are you surprised at all by how scathing this report has been?
No, I can't say that I am. I mean, that assessment of me is more generous than I deserve because I missed this story at the beginning, really. I was there, but I didn't understand the significance of it, which is partly why this Royal Commission has been so unsettling, because when you sit through all of the evidence, and this is important for everyone at home to understand, this is not an accident, this is not misadventure, this was a scheme that was designed as a hunter's trap to trap people and to do so in the most efficient way possible, and it did exactly what it was intended.
Rick, I suppose many people simply wanted to know whose fault this was. Is that now clear?
It's as clear as it can be when there are two birth partners, for want of a better word, for this scheme. The Commission was clear that Scott Morrison was the minister responsible for shepherding this through Cabinet. As you noted in that package, he allowed Cabinet to be misled through his own kind of pathological incuriosity about the legal advice and the legislative framework. But it was also the fact that he was so desperate to be the tough new welfare cop on the beat. And everybody else within the Department of Human Services and Social Services marched to his tune. They disregarded their own frank and fearless advice, which was in the initial brief that went to him, where they said, you can't do this without changing the legislation. And rather than have a frank conversation with him about what actually needed to be required, it seems like they took it upon themselves to lie, prevaricate, obfuscate, and trick everyone else in 2015. And that created a whole set of new problems in 2017 when those same Yeah.
I'm just really interested in your take on that, because contrasting that with Morrison's own denials today in response, they're so vehement. He rejects completely every finding against him. He says they're wrong, unsubstantiated, contradicted by clear documentary evidence. Can you help us understand why these findings are so clear and yet the man that the finger is being pointed at is so strong in his denials even today?
Yeah, I mean, the reason he's so strong in his denials is because they're asking him to take responsibility. And he's not been fond of it in his career, and he's certainly not fond of it on this matter, because he truly believes, I have no doubt about it, that he truly believes that the public service completely misled him and he didn't have to do any more to double check. I mean, the accusations they make are A, that he gave misleading evidence about the fact that income averaging was always used, but mostly it was about the fact that he had every reason to ask questions about the legality of this scheme and he didn't do it, particularly given the fact that it was his own department, Social Services, that had originally made those requests for changes because they had the legal advice. And he was the Social Services Minister and he didn't ask.
Rick, what kind of punishments might people, including these former ministers, face for this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we know that there have been referrals to places like the Australian Federal Police, the National Anti-Corruption Commission, who will all do their own investigations and decide what to do, if not, if anything, with some of those allegations. There's also legal professional services bodies. I suspect there will be some lawyers involved in this who worked for the departments who may face questions about whether they should practice law or be admitted if they are still admitted, because there was a whole chapter dedicated to the in-house legal advice being provided here, and more than one lawyer who acted in a way that was to cover up and hide the evidence that was mounting that this scheme was completely unlawful.
More to come when it comes to this. Thank you so much for your time, Rick.
Thanks, guys.
The statements from Stuart Robert, Alan Tudge, Christian Porter and Scott Morrison are all on our website, and if you find yourself in need of help for any reason, crisis support is available 24/7 through Lifeline on 13 11 14.